This is going to be kind of a fun off-the-cuff video that I think is going to be really helpful for a lot of players because in a recent update, they have disabled item sharing, which means you cannot drop weapons, traps, or items, materials to your teammates. There are some exceptions like dungeons and Frostnite and some other event mode, I'm sure, but for all intents and purposes, you cannot share resources between your teammates. Initially, you couldn't share Blue Glow, but Epic took care of that. Thank you very much. And it is a controversial change because, you know, while I agree that you can't drop Founders weapons anymore, and that kind of sucks, I also understand the damage that dupe glitches and trading has done to this community, and it's a really, really tricky situation. So if you want my full thoughts on that, I'll link the update video down below if you guys want to catch up and hear everything I have to say. But the fact remains is that whatever you've got in your backpack and in your storage is yours now. If you had a mule account or a friend that dropped you everything, that pipeline is cut off and locked into everybody's accounts. And one thing I have never ever talked about on my channel is how I manage my backpack and inventory space. That's what we're going to be talking today, but I have to say real quick, flashbang warning, I'm a light mode user, fight me on it. If you are looking to farm or get any items, if you're struggling with any aspect of this game, I made a video on how to get every single item. This was updated after over 5 years. My old video stood on its own, and I shrunk it by 14 minutes and like tripled the amount of information. It's got graphs, it's got timestamps. I put a lot of actual research into this. I had community members sending me screenshots of their expeditions. It was very cool, and I appreciate the help. But if you don't want to watch that entire thing, you should, link down below. But if you don't, I will give you 3 tips that'll mean you pretty much never have to farm. Okay, kill glowing animals, do target practices and encampments and storm chests, there we go, and run expeditions. Recycle all of the loot that you get from expeditions and wild animals, whatever. Recycle those weapons, recycle those traps that you get from those expeditions, and you hopefully should never have to farm. Now, trapping is a complicated subject. I do have an entire playlist on my channel that showcases trap guides, and that is a really, really good resource. In fact, I'll link that down below as well. This trap guides playlist is really good for helping trap efficiently so that you're not wasting 200 electric fields in every mission. Spoiler alert, you don't need to place 50 of them even. You can be smart about it. And as long as you are playing efficiently and passively farming, you don't need to run a fossil stealthy farming loadout every single game, though you can. You can just farm passively, kill the glowing animals. Resupply is a mission that got buffed recently, by the way. It's a lot easier to farm in there now. The storm doesn't close in anymore, and you don't have to collect those 10 packages. So if you do need to hop into a mission, that mission got buffed recently. It's basically a free win. Good deal. But you shouldn't even have to do that because you should be able to get stuff passively. All right. Now that we've talked about how to get items and why we're talking about this, let me explain how I handle my inventory. It should be readily apparent that I am a YouTuber. I have a lot of weapons crafted at any given moment, and I like variety. So I have videos in this inventory. I've got weapons like this helium shotgun. Someone on stream wanted me to run with double crit damage. That thing crit for 2 million damage. That might have to be a video, and that's just what I'm thinking. Like, I have so many different random weapons, some that I use in games, some that were like a one-off video, and there's a lot in here. So I am also a founder, and that means that with the limited and ultimate edition upgrades, my backpack got boosted to 240. I get that question a lot. The standard limit is 220. You can see that I'm at 215. So while I am a founder and I enjoy that extra space, I don't always necessarily use it. And if you play your cards right, if you manage your space efficiently, you shouldn't have to either. A lot of people's inventories used to just be a xenon bow, a pot shot, and some mythics. With recent, and the deatomizer, with some recent changes to the game, to the projectile size of the xenon bow, the efficiency of the deatomizer, and the damage of the pot shot. Okay, pot shot's still king, but it got like a 50% damage nerf and is still king. Crazy weapon, but I like variety, but a lot of people's inventories look really slim. I encourage variety. If you're limited on space, don't use less weapons, store less resources, and we'll get to that. Melees are much like my weapons. There's just lots of these. These are crafted for me, and I can never get new ones again, so I'm scared to use them. They're technically the highest swing speed melee in the game due to some rearranging of perks they did. People assure me it wasn't a bug, but it sure seemed like it because you could get double element. But anyway, the swing speed on these is special, and I can't get new ones, but ammo, of course, we can skip. But traps. This is the first bit of advice I want to give to everybody watching this video: you do not need to carry 30 stacks of traps. In fact, I'm not going to hop in game to show it, but when you pull up your trap wheel and it shows you all your different traps, I don't like seeing 6 stacks of tire traps. That's actually really inefficient. If you don't have your trap wheel bind, by the way, or bound, I guess would be the word, I highly recommend it. I don't know where it is in here, but if you go to building, it should be building edit, place. I want to find it with you guys because it's a big deal. Mine is G. Yeah, buildings for trap. This is huge because instead of just T and then cycling through it, G will pull up the trap wheel based on the surface you're facing. So that can be walls, ceilings, or floors. That's a really, really nice thing to have. And so I personally choose to have one of each of my main traps. I don't personally use ceiling zappers, and even sound walls are a pretty rare pick, but this is just my selection. These are not the only best traps that you should ever use. If you guys like campfires, you should have them in here, whatever. If you use your jump pads, whatever. You know, your playstyle will dictate what this screen looks like, but this, in my opinion, is truly all the traps you need to have. And I'll skip ahead just a little bit to show that if I have excess traps, they go into my storage over here. And this is where you can condense resources. When you put traps in here, you can recycle them for 100% return. I'm pretty sure everybody should know that by now, but I'll say it anyway. If you have a stack of floor freeze, that is actually 1,400 rough ore, 400 quartz, and 400 oxidized. That's a lot of resources. So if you do find yourself with surplus, you can fully recycle those. And then I like to craft mine with my own perks because of the way I like to run floor freeze. Then you could just craft them back down, and that's how you can manage your storage. That's a really efficient way to do it. I hope that's how everybody does it, but I like to make this video just because I want to get everybody on the same page and so they know how I run things. Now, when you're holding resources, you can only have 5,000 of each build. That is a lot. That is plenty. And I'll even cut to my storage over here. These are all the extra builds I have. Now, it is going to be stated in the comments, and I'll just get ahead of it. I do play with a full team usually. I'm a content creator, I'm a streamer, I have high-level players who like to run missions with me. If you are somebody who's solo queuing a lot, our Discord is linked down below. I highly recommend using it if you can't or don't want to use Discord. Things get trickier from there. You're going to be forced into pubs or whatever friends you do have. I highly recommend socializing, making friends, being nice to people, letting people know when you had a good game, adding people, playing with them in the future, but inevitably people will be solo queuing. If you are the type of person who finds yourself building every single mission, you might find it necessary to save more resources and builds than this. I have never found the 5K here to be less than I needed. Even when I'm the one building the defense every single one of the 10-160s, once that number gets low, like I said, encampments, passive farming, you just kind of get builds back. You can switch to a different resource. Even if metal is the best for the mission you're running, you can do brick for a few missions. Maybe not during a water season. I don't recommend wood, but you can try and switch off of it. A lot of people like to run material grinders and endurance, and they overdo it. This is another one of those major tips I want to give. You should not need 100,000 metal. I get it. You're solo queuing a lot. You feel like you do all the building and you need more than Beast has on camera here. That's fair. I hear you, but you don't need 100,000. That is 20 inventory spaces wasted. It's wasted. And speaking of waste, I do like to have a small collection of 6-star resources. These are useless. They will not be used for anything. They're trophies. They're just something I felt like would be fun to have. And that moves me on to my next point, is Sunbeam and Brightcore. Once again, people seem to think they need to have 20,000 Sunbeam on hand. You don't. Let me do some basic math, all right? 999 Sunbeam is good for, let me do 999 divided by, say you're not even using scavenger, you're using normal weapons. That is 90, almost 91 weapons you can craft with that one stack. I recently, in a video that's not up at the time of recording, but it might be up on the channel by the time you've seen this, is I made a video on the Power Level 12 Ancient Launcher. I could not craft this thing. I wanted to showcase how good a 35 copy could be with energy. I had 0 silver. I had 5 silver. I couldn't craft one. So I hopped in Plankerton, farmed up to 11, crafted it, and got another 10 in like 10 minutes. It was, maybe a little bit of a lucky start, but glowing animals, killing mist monsters, they drop ores and Sunbeam. You're not going to get crystal in Plankerton But you get my point. You know, kill some mist monsters, do a target practice, do a storm chest. You can get these things really quickly, and that's my point, is not only can you get 90 weapons out of a stack of Sunbeam, but if you're passively farming a little bit as you go, shooting down glowing animals here and there, you'll probably profit on Sunbeam most missions. If it's not a weapon that uses a ton of durability, you're probably gonna last a bit of time. Now, if you are using a weapon that breaks constantly, say you're maining the room sweeper and burning half your durability every game, I might encourage you to try some variety. Use a shotgun that gets a bit further out of its durability. Run the Dirge Song for a few missions. I don't care. There's a million different weapons. I've got fun loadouts for over 200 different loadouts in that playlist. It's a lot. There are a lot of things you can run that might last a bit longer if you're trying to farm back up on Sunbeam. You could switch off. You could use a Sunbeam weapon for a few games. Maybe you find that you're running low on Sunbeam. You've only got, 20 Sunbeam left. I'm serious. You have 20 Sunbeam left. Switch to Brightcore. Run some Brightcore melees for a bit. That's a fun option. A lot of mine shown here are Sunbeam, but many melees work great as Brightcore because that added attack speed adds some relevant damage bonuses to Paleo Luna. Faster you swing, the more damage you do with her. So, this Brightcore Stormblade would be a great way to, rebuild your Sunbeam supply. So what I'm saying is my couple of stacks of Sunbeam here is pretty much constant. For years now, that has been plenty. And I do craft my own weapons. And I have had some dropped to me by teammates over the years. Again, I'm a streamer. I've gotten free stuff for a long time. I'm not immune to that fact. But like I said with the silver ore, I have farmed my own resources and you can get it back really quickly. So what I'm saying is don't have 20 stacks of Sunbeam and Brightcore in your inventory. If you're low on space, it's going to be painful, but try destroying some of it. You might be fine. You'll be shocked how far 5,000 Sunbeam goes. You'll get 15 inventory spots back and you'll never even notice it. So as for the other resources, I like to keep a stack or less. That's why I was out of silver. I had stacked up to like 900 or so, or I think E-Crab wanted some. I don't know. I just dropped him all of it. I recommend saving some on hand. You never know what weird weapon Beast is going to make a video on, and you're going to get some anyway. If you're like Matteo and you're super OCD about your inventory and you can't stand having these empty resources, I get it. If you're trying to be maximum efficient, that makes sense, but it's going to be a lot of micromanaging because as you play V-Bucks missions and random stuff, you're just going to get these parts in your inventory. They're going to stack up, and giving one inventory space to each of them I don't think is too bad. Now, there are some exceptions. I said you don't need 20,000 Sunbeam, but carved twine, efficient parts, oxidized, that stuff goes quick. Nuts and bolts, planks. You can see the reason I've never made a video on my storage is there's very little method to this madness. And I just wanted to share my philosophy and give you what method there is. I like to have enough. If I scroll through my inventory, I'm full on resources, and I notice that I've got an absurd amount of adhesive resin, 5 or 6 stacks. That is not something that gets used for like anything. You can craft duct tape with it, I guess, and rocket ammo. Rocket ammo's a little hard to come by. Adhesive resin is nice to have, but it can go quick. Sometimes it stacks up. Another one that stacks up a lot that'll surprise you are flower petals and fiber herbs. If you actually think about what these two things are used for, you'll be shocked how rarely you'll need them. Gas traps are pretty strong, but nowadays they only cost 5 fiber herbs. That's not much. Campfires, if I can go back up here, campfires do take some flowers, but nowadays, I recommend healing pads. And if you're crafting healing pads, 4 flowers, it's kind of a lot, but they go a long way. One healing, quintuple healing pad, you place like 1 or 2 of these in a mission, that should generally be fine. And I'm pretty sure nothing else is using flowers. If you're, not using campfires and you're just using healing pads as I personally play, you are only using flowers for healing pads. And when you simplify it that much, these 2 stacks seem excessive. I'm not out of space. I'm going to keep these personally, but if you find yourself with 7 or 8 stacks of flower petals, consider the fact that you probably don't need that many, or you're in a position where you could probably pre-craft some healing pads. You can always just do that. If you find yourself that you're low on storage and you want to save on some, you can just craft it. As you can see, that actually added to my storage. Now I have healing pads that separated from the stack, and I might recycle those down later, but you can always craft it all into traps if you know that that's the only resource that needs it. Now, one thing that did pull a lot from was, okay, what actually crafts into healing pads? I haven't looked at this in a while. Yeah, bacon. So bacon is no longer used for energy cells, as I recall. So bacon is exclusively used by healing pads, defender posts, and I believe gas traps. So it's kind of nice to have, but if you've been farming a lot, I don't know how you're going to get ahead on bacon, and you find out you've got 7 stacks of bacon, consider the fact that you might not need that much. So what I'm basically saying is keep an eye on inventory, look at what you're actually using. You can see I've got plenty of nuts and bolts, plenty of planks ready to go, because these things get used. Anybody who's ever needed to craft tire traps knows exactly what I'm talking about. Planks go fast. Need some ceiling electric fields? That's 8 nuts and bolts a pop. It's a big ask. So I'm just saying to keep an eye on inventory, make sure nothing gets out of hand, and anything you're not using. If you're an endgame player, you're using 5-star materials and you've got 2 or 3 stacks of simple twine, maybe you don't need the 2 stacks, you know what I mean? Just save 107 in case some random low-level weapon needs to be crafted. It happens. Maybe you're playing with a low-level friend, things change. Blast powder is something I like to keep a lot of, just because, it goes quick once you start using it. Rocket ammo, you'd be surprised, but that's basically my backpack. I don't have much else to say. That's why it's never been a video. I felt like this was pretty intuitive, but that's arrogant and unhelpful when I feel like I have information that could be shared. Power cells. I want to mention this one too. Hot take, you never need more than a stack of power cells. This one I can confidently say. I was forgetful with the trap crafting, but you will never, ever need more than a single power cell to make anything. 761 in my case is plenty. That is so many. If you have even 1 stack plus 1 power cell, delete that 1 power cell. Power cells should never take more than 1 inventory spot. Cut it down to like 500. That is absolutely plenty. As I mentioned with the how to get a Venom video, power cells are a bit rarer to come by, but I think an expedition covers it. Gnomes are pretty common. You can punch them with clip to get more, by the way, if you really need to focus on power cells, but you should never need more than 1 stack. So yeah, I think I'm just rambling at this point for my backpack. That's pretty much how I handle it. Any comments down below, I'm happy to answer. Let's talk about storage. So I like to have some miscellaneous rare / modded weapons. I think we all do. I've never really taken part in trading. It's not interesting to me, but I do like to keep some keepsakes. Viewers of mine will be like, hey man, you want a quad crit damage wasp? Like, not really, but sure, I'll take it. Why not? Maybe that'll be a video someday. My own founder's drumroll, when they changed the 6 perks, became a legacy copy. Kind of cute, right? I'm afraid to shoot it because I don't want to break it. Jack's Revenge, it released with double mag size. That's kind of fun. Then they took the perk away so you could have a 3 perk Jack's Revenge. I got 2 legacies for 1 update. Kind of fun. So, crit chance is a gone perk nowadays. Nocturno with, crit chance and no 6 perk. Like, some fun random stuff is in here. These are all dead inventory spots. They're cute. They're fun to show on camera, but like, Hemlock, you might think, what's weird about that? Triton, I believe, gave me these. He had a bug with his schematic where the 6 perk was gone. He's like, what the hell, man? I'm like, I don't know. Drop me 2. He said, bet. And just gave it to me. So yeah, anyway, keeping some keepsakes is fine. But if you are the type of trader who's got an entire storage full of these, consider that they're not as worth keeping as you might think. Again, modded or miscellaneous fun melees are in here. Just kind of, someone crafted me a lot of these quad attacks be night cleaves. I'm afraid to use them unless I get a video out of it because I don't want to break them for no reason. It's sad. Ammo, I don't keep extra, but some people do. If you're somebody who's set up with an AFK endurance, that's not something I have a tutorial for, but a lot of people do like to save all of the energy cells and explosive ammo they get from that. That's a 2 thumbs up in my opinion. Farming for these resources is tough, and some of the best weapons in the game take energy cells and explosive ammo. So if you want to keep a lot of ammo on hand in your storage, that makes sense, but it's not something I personally do. Of course, traps. Whenever you are way too full on a certain resource, like I showed that I have a lot of, let me just switch my screen once more. I have a lot of carved twine and planks and nuts and bolts. If I was ever low on storage, I would look for traps with that crafting recipe and downcraft them here. You could see how many anti-air traps I have. These are all just bundles of resources, bundles of them. You saw in the intro of this video, I kept my hands busy and I just crafted some floor freeze, because when you are low on a trap, don't craft more necessarily, unless you need it for the mission. Don't fail the mission, but go back to your storage, pull from here and use those traps that you've got. 69, nice. So, use what you've got. And I feel like a lot of people don't. They hoard the traps and then they tell me they're broke. And I'm like, what are you doing? Just use what you've got. Use what you've got. All these campfires, I don't personally favor them over healing pads anymore, but that is a lot of planks per campfire. It's a lot over here. Oh, and the retractable floor spike, only available in the tutorial mission, by the way. So if you ever show a newbie to the game, when they are handed those free retractable floor spikes, place what is required for the defense, and then now they have a trap that you can never get back. It's useless and fun, but you can only get the gray floor spikes from the tutorial. So I introduced a friend to the game, and midway I was telling her like, okay, drop me. She's like, why? Like, give me those two, because I knew she would never care, but I wanted to have just a couple extra. So kind of a fun thing. And then extra resources, I already showed this. I keep Sunbeam and Brightcore. I'm almost breaking my own rule by keeping more than I need, but you can see my storage isn't completely out of control, so I'm allowed to get a little lax with that. So there you go, the ramblings of a madman. Hopefully this was helpful. I hope I didn't upset anybody. I am pretty critical about storage. I've been playing games for a long time, and I do this in Pokemon Go as well. If I have friends that have more than 50 max potions and more than 50 max revives, if they let me, I will toss it. I watched my friend shudder in Florida as I tossed. That was Amber. You guys saw her. She did my daily. I tossed like 400 or 500 max revives. She's like, oh, and I'm like, you don't need it. You don't need it, because if you think about the game and how things work. Okay, now I'm transitioning to Pokemon Go storage inventory stuff. But when you're doing raids in Pokemon, they will give you healing potions and revives. So on average, you will be profiting as you go. And space is expensive in Pokemon Go. It's like legit money to store more items. Not like Save the World. Like, you can earn more storage to Save the World. In Pokemon Go, you gotta buy that. And Demon Gamer feels called out in my chat right now, because if you have more than 50 max potions or 50 max revives, you might be wasting storage. And I added up someone's, there's another, he's in the community, I won't call him out by name, but he's an in-person friend of mine. So he had 900 rare candies, and I did the math. I don't know if it was exactly 900, but I did the math, and I was like, sir, I think you have $112 US worth of rare candies sitting in your bag right now. And he's like, wow. He's like, dude, don't call me out like that. And that's what I'm saying, okay? There isn't like financial money at stake in Save the World, but inventory management is a critical thing that you should take seriously. Don't hoard stuff just because you feel like you're never going to run out. You can get more. You can get more. Stuff is infinite in Save the World. If you're low on storage, get rid of some stuff. So, all right. Now I'm rambling for real. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully this was helpful. Subscribe if you're new. Channel members get early access to my scheduled videos. So if you're interested in that kind of perk, you can join with the link down below. But all my videos go out for free eventually. It's not necessary to pay me a dime. I'm gonna go back to, what was I doing before I record? I think I was playing Bloons. This was like a casual stream. I was not planning on recording today, but yeah, Twitch link down below if you guys ever want to be a part of the fun. So goodbye. Enjoy your improved storage space. Let me know how it goes. Actually, seriously, comment down below if you made it this far. Tell me how much storage you saved by hearing some of these tips. I would love to hear it.